What's coming off around here?
Ain't you guys playing railroad anymore today? There's a landslide, a new cut.
Hi, and welcome to episode 9. This is part 4 of the Benchwork series. I'm building the first Benchwork I've ever built, and of course I'm no proficient carpenter, so a lot of what I've been showing you is trial and error. So as I go forward, hopefully I'll get down establishing the basics for all the subsequent benchwork that I may build following this one. The first one, as you recall, was when I introduced the channel, Fun with HO Scale Stuff. I had indicated that the railroad name, the whole idea of a model railroad was that it was to be a terminal railroad. It was this Lehigh Valley Terminal Railroad, and it's a short line with a terminus at the yard. This first platform that I plan on building is going to be the service area for the locomotives. This will be the yard. So we went through the leg assembly earlier, and when I was going through the leg assembly, I mentioned about levelers, and I talked about the different kinds. So this is the one that I purchased. It's kind of nice because it can be mounted to the bottom of the leg, and it'll have, you can see, there'll be plenty of mounting surface area. There's lots of strength involved in putting those on there. So that'll be a solution to make sure that the benchwork is actually as level as I can make it. There's going to be some issue with level. I mean, this is not furniture, and I'm no carpenter, so it's going to have some wonkiness to it. But I'm trying to do everything I can to minimize that. But like these long pieces, the 8-foot sections of 1x3, they're not straight. I mean, yeah, they have some curvulations in them. But the one thing that I did learn when I built these legs is that the glue does a miraculous job it's absolutely strong. I mean, that's going to be the solution here on the main platform, so that this part of the benchwork with the frame, it's just going to be glued to this plywood sheet. Now the plywood sheet, of course, that's 2 foot by 8 foot. And the thing I've started out with was I started by I cut my end pieces and stringers, but the first 2 pieces I cut to 22 inches because that's how my plan was. I didn't stop and think, but the fact is that the lumber that's sold as 2x3, the lumber sold that's supposedly 1x3 is not 1 inch. So when I used 22, it was actually undersized slightly. So I'll reuse these pieces. There's 2 of them, and I'm going to use those for the, I guess blocks that are going to go on the legs. So these will get, cut down to smaller pieces, and then they'll be used as blocks. And then I cut these are 22 3/8, and they fit much, much better. So to kind of demonstrate that, I can take what I could do is show you, put that in there. Okay, this one is flush here, and I'll put one over here that's flush, and we'll pull this in between like that, and you see how nice, whoops, oh my, get those straight. I mean, there's still, well, actually not so much. But the fit is very nice with that a bit of additional wood length. on the end piece. So that mistake, I guess, because I was advised to be careful and take my time, and I did not. I ran out and I cut two pieces and was thinking 22 inches because that's what was on my estimation for buying lumber, and didn't stop to recall, my past experience. I knew that lumber isn't cut to these precise sizes. It's always smaller because they finish the lumber. It may start out as a 1x3, but it doesn't end up as 1x3. So anyway, that aside, I want to glue the end pieces in first because they'll help me align the long runners for the frame. So I'll do that, and then in the next little bit, because I know it's boring to watch somebody, glue things and sand things. So I'm going to sand this. Now I think one other thing I might point out is this is the crappy side of the lumber. So I have the crappy side up because once the frame is assembled on here, I'll flip it over and then the good side will be up. So that's a thought to share. Also, I brought in some additional clamps from the garage. I've got a number of clamps from when I did the legs. They're just out of sight right now, but I actually put things away for a change. So let me go ahead. I'll sand this, I'll clamp it, and we'll get this started. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to show you a new toy I got. It's out in the garage. It's the thing I used to saw this lumber, but the only reason I'm going to show it to you because it's not that important, but I want to just go through a little bit of what I learned about that and what my experience was, because I've never had a miter saw before. This is the first one I ever had, and it's one that I picked up. It was fairly cheap. It was a discontinued model, so that'll kind of foreshadow what I'm about to tell you about that, but more on that. So here we are in the garage, and here's my new toy. It says it's a Chicago Electric 10-inch miter saw, and the thing I've learned is that the 10-inch refers to the blade size, and I had to buy a blade. I got this saw, but I still had to buy a blade. So I got to admit that being a complete novice, I was a little hesitant about buying a blade because I wasn't sure if it would fit. Well, I'll put it like that. But yeah, there are different sized shafts that come off the motor. Some of them have some larger, some smaller. And, given that, I don't know, I guess the 10 inches is like a standard, pretty much a standard saw. And the saw came with instructions on blade installation. So I tried to follow these instructions. And that was kind of comical because, right now you see this has a spring action. The blade guard has a spring. The spring is mounted on it's mounted actually on this side of the, I don't know if you can see it, but it's mounted in here. So what happened was when there was no blade on there, and I decided I was going to do it. It came like this. It had the guard in place. And so the first thing was to get the guard out of the way. And, when they talk about it on the instructions, like you look at this and it says, swing guard open and remove guard plate bolt. Well, I take it this is the guard plate bolt. So I took this out, and the guard was still in the way of putting a blade in here because I took this out, and it was actually, as soon as I took the bolt out, this nut out. The plastic ring that fits into here fell out, and the spring that was on the back fell onto this flat surface, and the whole guard assembly it came loose. So I flopped it all back over, to get it out of the way. So now my challenge was, and I don't know if you can see it, like here, there's like a black plate, and it actually covers all of this space right around here. So it's smack in the way of putting a blade in. And so I go back to the instructions. I go, what the heck is that? Like, what do I do with that? So, if you're looking at these instructions, it says, hold in spindle lock on back while removing arbor bolt. Well, I don't speak saw, so I'm looking at it going, So I got a 10-inch blade I bought, and I took it out of its package, and I figured, well, look, this thing's got to get out of the way. So I tried to. It has two. There's two screws holding it in place, and so the one you can't see because of this guard, but the one here is bigger than this one, and this one, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but it's got quite a unique style to it. Yeah. So I took, this one's a regular bolt, and I got a wrench, and I took it out, and I could not move this, even with hitting it with the, like I had a screwdriver, and I was bopping on it and stuff, and I couldn't get it out of the way, and I didn't want to break it or bend it or anything. So I finally just happened to have you can't call it a screwdriver. It's some kind of a nut, special nut fixture that goes in here. Let me show it to you. I'll take you over here a moment to my tools. Yeah, and I believe it's this drawer. And okay, so this is the guy, and I bought this I bought this a long time ago. It's been in my toolbox, and I've never used it except now. And the one on the far right, this one here, that one there just happened to fit that crazy nut. So I was able to loosen it, and it was really tight. I don't know how many foot-pounds of torque they put on that thing, but I finally got it loose, took it out, and then I had finally got the guard out of the way. And then I was able to fit the blade up in here. But the problem was that everything regarding this guard here was pieces laying around. I had to get the thing back together again. And I mean to tell you, it took me the better part of 2 hours of monkeying around, of doing and undoing, to finally get everything fitted back together to where this guard would do that. It has to spring back down. So I thought you might be interested to know that I managed to mess this up too. But, it was my first time ever to use a saw like this. And so I was completely unfamiliar with it. And as you can tell, the instructions aren't much use when it comes to actually figuring out. It just wasn't that simple. They don't even mention this metal plate that's on here. So, yeah. However, one thing that did help me was in the instructions. Just sorry to drag this out, but yeah, I thought it might be a human interest story. But in the instructions, there's a picture. Oh, where did that picture go? Darn it. It's here somewhere. I thought maybe it was all the way in the back. Yeah, here it is. There's a picture, and it shows the guard assembly. There's that plate, and that little round thing, that's the spring. That's not the plate that we were just looking at. That one, I'm not even sure where they show it. It's on here though. Well, maybe it was that. Yeah, okay. So I guess it was that, and then there's a spring. That's the spring that fell down. Oh, this is the back of the guard, and then that's the spring, and I managed to get that spring back on there, but it took me, like I said, the better part of 2 hours to figure this out, and it wasn't until I started carefully studying this drawing that I was able to figure out how to get that spring back in. But another interesting thing, I won't bore you to death. One last thing, in order to raise up the saw blade, the motor assembly, you have to pull this out. So when it's all the way down and locked, this automatically just drops in. And so now it's in a locked position. So I tried pulling this out, and I'm pulling and pulling, I couldn't get it out. Well, it turns out that you have to push down on the blade, which I'm doing with my left hand, then pull it out, and now it'll spring back up. Now, instructions like that, you just don't get. You know, I mean, you got to pay your dues with these kinds of things, you know. Yeah. But, yeah, the basic saw, though, I'm pretty happy with it. And it makes pretty clean cuts. You know, they're really nice and straight. So, yeah, that's an advantage over the hand saw, which I've hung back up. Not retired, it's just hung up. In summary, I just want to point out that there is a fully functional operating miter saw with a properly functioning blade guard. After all of that, took, like I say, about 2 hours to put it all back together. But there it is. I could give you a better shot of it. But I can't wait. Thank you. But, gee, could perhaps somebody, I'm still a little confused. Does anybody know where this part goes? This is Emma's surviving sister. She's also going on 16. Hopefully she'll make 16. We like to keep her around as long as we can. She can be a Dickens. I put a lot of time and invest in walking this little gal here. She likes to go out all the time. Thank you, baby. There you go. So here's the finished platform, the first platform that I'm building of the for the total benchwork. There's two platforms. There's one that'll go on the top, and then there's one that goes on the bottom. Now you know I've just shown the process of putting this together. It's quite sturdy. It's like, look at this. Yeah. So, oops, get that back up. There we are. So it's going to be it looks to me that the adhesion is extremely good between the boards and the plywood, and I really did hope that the glue would, all the gluing that I did on this thing, I was really hoping that it would turn out all right, because I've never done this before, and I just wasn't certain that I was moving in the right direction, but I'm still not, don't get me wrong, because I've still got to figure out how I'm going to attach the legs. Got some information from subscriber Larry, and he said put the legs on the inside. So actually I had been thinking about that, and we're going to see. I've been thinking about just exactly how I'm going to do the assembly, but it won't be, I'm working in the basement right now because it's been so cold and wet outside, and the garage is very unpleasant to be in for any length of time. But we're getting into the spring, weather's warming up. In fact, tomorrow we're supposed to be able to get all the way up to 70 something. So here in Pennsylvania, things are changing. So I'm not going to bother showing you this. It would be kind of pointless, just redundant. The next thing we're going to see in a final episode of the Benchwork series is going to be me putting the legs on. And I've got, I've got the legs right over here, and I'll take it all out to the garage, and we'll do the assembly out there. And one thing that I might add here at this point, is that when I do that assembly and the legs put the legs on the inside, that this, whichever one I decide to make the bottom platform, will become a shelf, and then of course the corners where the legs are going to go, I'm going to have to cut that out. That'll have to be, that's got to be cut so that the leg goes through it. Because it's going to be it'll be off the floor by about a foot, and so that the leg has to pass through. Anyway, that's all I've got right now. I'm going to call this episode complete from I think this is episode 9, so the next episode should be episode 10. I can count. And I hope that some of this has been either amusing or helpful or informative, and that I can get a like and a subscribe, and maybe some comments. You might help me out of here a little bit and tell me how I'm messing things up. So I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. See you guys in the next one.